Um, He used to play backup on Motown, so everybody who's heard Motown has heard him.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Reverend Jenna Watkins, the Assistant Minister for the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast. If you've never been to a Center for Spiritual Living before, we believe that there is one God. However, there are many paths to that God, and we are here to love, honor, and support you no matter what your divine path is. The Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast is a safe haven for people of all beliefs and lifestyles. So whoever you are and wherever you find yourself on your journey of faith, you are welcome here. So today I will be the practitioner and reader, and our speaker is practitioner Patrice Rivera. Also, as a reminder, some of us have remembered it's unexpected income today. So the past week or month, if you've ever received anything unexpected, a dinner, a gift, money, whatever it might be that was unexpected, if you'd like to tell us about it and tithe a little bit to the church, we'd appreciate that. And I know I have something, and I believe Patrice has something, so that's great. And a reminder that next Saturday is our community lunch. We're having it at the Red Ginger Sun Tree Restaurant. I have the address, so if anybody needs it, just come see me and I'll hand it out to you. And then, of course, a reminder, Eddie Watkins Jr. will be coming here
October 14th.
October 14th. Tickets will be $20. They will be out there soon. It's a gift. He's magnificent. And I hope you'll join us because it's a great time with Eddie. He's been here before and we all love him. So that's it for the announcements. So now we have music. But Eddie's so great. That's wonderful too. And so we are going to shift gears just a little bit. We're going to quiet down. We're going to have a few moments of silence. So if you'd like to just settle in, get in a comfortable position, maybe close your eyes, focus on breathing slow, deep breaths in and out, allowing your body and your mind to just relax and calm down. And with each breath, you go deeper within to that place of perfection, that place where we recognize and acknowledge the spirit of life that flows in as and through us. It is the spirit of perfection, of creation, of variety, of uniqueness, of exploration, and love. And it flows in and as through us, each of us, to allow us to express perfectly who we are as spirits. And I know that we come together today in recognition of this spirit, of the uniqueness of each and every one of us here that come together to create a community of variety and love, and laughter and support and encouragement. And I bless each and every one of you for being here today or being on the video and joining with us. And I especially bless our guest speaker, Patrice, for standing up and speaking with us, sharing with us her thoughts and ideas that percolate from the mind of God, allowing us to recognize that we are perfect just as we are, whole, complete, and perfect in our specialness, our uniqueness, our very beingness. And for all of this, I do give thanks, and so it is. My reading today is from A Deep Breath of Life by Alan Cohen. And the title is called Just Be You. The renowned sage Rabbi Zushya wept as he lay on his deathbed. His students gathered by his side were astonished. "Rabbi, why do you weep?" one of them asked. "If anyone is assured of a place in heaven, it is you." "I'll tell you why," the learned one answered softly. "If, when I approach the gates of heaven, I am asked, 'Why were you not a Moses?' I will answer, 'Because I was not born to do what Moses did.' And if the heavenly host argues, 'You did not perform the miracles that Elijah did,' I shall tell them, 'Those were Elijah miracles to perform, not mine.' My friends, the only question I fear I shall be unable to answer is, why were you not a Rabbi Zushia? Destiny is a personal adventure. Just as no two snowflakes or fingerprints are alike, every soul comes into this world for a unique purpose. Each of us manifests good according to our own strengths and intentions. Never compare your worth to that of others because you did not accomplish what they did. You were never supposed to be like them. Your highest purpose in life is to be true to yourself. If you honor your personal gifts, intuition, inclinations, and visions, you will fulfill your destiny and serve many others in the process. Let us now welcome Patrice Rivera.
Well, good morning. Actually, between Reverend Jenna's prayer and Eddie Watkins, you don't need to hear anything from me. They said it all. They did, right? Yeah, you're gonna Eddie's song that you'll find out why I was laughing in a little bit. Thank you all for being here. Welcome and good morning. It's always so exciting for me when people show up when our spiritual leader isn't here. So thank you for being here. As you saw, my talk title is Perfection. And I actually chose this title weeks before I knew that I was going to be speaking. I actually borrowed it from Dr. Peggy Bassett, who was the spiritual leader at the Huntington Beach Church. In fact, she was the spiritual leader at that church when I think that's the church that Ron and Becky started going to, or they had gone there at one time anyways. They also knew her. Someone had gifted me a CD of her last talk, probably 20 years ago. And it was so phenomenal. I bet I have listened to it 500 times. I've made copies and given it out to people. I really thought that it was so poignant the way she talks about perfection. In her last talk, Dr. Peggy had taken a year off and had come back to do the last talk. She had taken a year off because she was experiencing a dis-ease state that she would never name, but just so you know, Lou Gehrig had the same dis-ease state. And so she told the congregation to suspend their own idea of what perfection looks like, because I know as they were looking at her up on stage, she didn't look or act like the Peggy that they had known previously because of the ravages of the disease. And she was sure that they weren't seeing the perfection. And so she wanted them to suspend that and let her talk about the perfection. She talked about how the ravages of the experience were actually the answer to her prayers. That's a novel concept. She talked about how her feet didn't work like they used to. In fact, she had to have help coming up on stage, and she was told to sit, but she refused to do it. So she stood and she had help standing up and turning the pages for her because she couldn't. But she talked about how that was an answer to her prayers because she had asked to live a slower paced life. She talked about how her tongue didn't, and she was an incredibly intelligent woman who would use very large words quite often. And she talked about how her tongue didn't work right to pronounce the words that she used to. And she realized that that was an answer to the prayer that she needed to listen more than talk. She talked about her struggle to see the perfection in her experience and in the world. And yet, in that previous year, when she had taken the time off, she actually asked the people not to pray for her. She knew that God had not abandoned her. She knew that God could never abandon her. And she didn't want somebody to think that they needed to pray it away. A lot of times in CSL, we think we can pray something away. And I know Reverend Cynthia was always really good at saying, you can't pray it away. You can only pray to accept it. And so that's what she wanted to do. She wanted to see her experience as the gift that it was, and she wanted to gently unwrap that gift all on her own. She wanted to be able to stand in her truth, and yet she was struggling with what we all do. What is perfection? How can we look at our lives or the lives of others and the world at large and see that divine perfection? That divine perfection. Spirit is always present as perfection, and that is God. Dr. Peggy understood exactly what Dr. Holmes was talking about in his Science of Mind, saying that, and you know, he uses man, just think of it as a replacement for human, not a gender. Spiritual man is perfect, but his individual use of life and law enables him to cover a perfect idea with an apparently imperfect cloak. Sickness is not a spiritual reality. It is an experience. Healing is not a process, but a revelation. For the revealing of the perfect man always heals. The process, if there is anyone, is the time and thought that it takes to arrive at the correct understanding of a person's perfect state in spirit. And he goes further on a few pages later to say, healing then is accomplished by uncovering, neutralizing, and erasing false images of thought, and letting the perfect idea reflect itself through subjective mind into the body. Realizing that conscious thought operates through a power which is infinite, we see that there is no limit to the power to heal, other than the limit of our ability to conceive that that power is healing. We are limited not by principle, but by our own inability to see perfection. Seeing perfection where our humanness does not. The human trait of always striving for perfection when it is already innate is what that human condition is. And actually what we tend to experience is a bit of perfectionism. Well, perfectionism, according to the Journal of Psychology Today, is a trait which makes life an endless report card of our accomplishments or our looks. When it's healthy, it can be self-motivating and a drive to overcome and achieve. However, there is a really fine line, and we can slip into the unhealthy. In an unhealthy state, it's a strive for external perfection where we might desire success, where we are actually focused on avoiding failure, a negative orientation. And then there's a toxic, extreme perfectionism, which doesn't believe in unconditional love. In fact, they have a belief system which says affection, attention, and approval are always dependent upon our acts. They're dependent upon a flawless performance of that external perfection. And we all know that's not always or ever possible. And so we also know that what we think about comes about. So if we're actually focused on avoiding failure, we get, well, not success. wanting success that manifests and shows up as what that person deems failure. Perfectionism means that you can't ever be wrong. We can't assault that ego as in edging God out. For our ego is strong and it wants to survive. It wants to edge God out. There is also that paralyzation that can come with a perfectionism, of being too afraid to not be perfect, too afraid to mess up, too afraid to make mistakes, that we don't do anything. So enmeshed in that strive for perfection that nothing is ever good enough. So people figure, well, why bother? Well, this type of thinking leads to something that it seems we have a lot of in the world these days: a lack of creativity, a depression, anxiety, OCD, and even suicidal thoughts. We have stopped remembering our truth. We have stopped living when we give in to perfectionism. We bought into that human version instead of the divine version. And I know we live in a world where it's all around us, always. Marketing. I mean, that's how marketing works, to try and get us to buy something. They try to make us think that we're less than and that we need it, right? If we have this toothpaste or that car or this education or that career, well, if only, when, someday it will be perfect. Someday everything will align and we'll have nirvana. Or maybe we live there right now and we just don't see it. Because if we live in a state of fear, we live in the land of no as our default. Does anybody remember the movie The Yes Man by Jim Carrey? Yes, good. I hope just some of us were as old as I am. He played a guy who always said no, no matter what. Well, this was a comedy. It was Jim Carrey, and he got himself into some outrageous conditions. And it was pretty funny. But I, even back then, found it very, very poignant. I kind of took it in because he makes an agreement at a self-help seminar to say yes to everything that's presented to him. And that's when the hilarity really starts, because as he's saying yes, all kinds of things come up. And I know that this movie is about stepping into life. It's about being available and showing up, willing to say yes. We miss a lot when we have no as a default. And yet I know that yes can be scary. I saw this movie with my kids when they were, I don't know, preteens, teens. They're 40 now, so it was a while ago. And it was pretty funny when we left the movie. They were all excited. There were 3 of them and they ganged up on me, and they were all excited, wanting me to remember that movie and say yes all day long. Teenagers, right? Thank goodness there was a divine inspiration, and I said, absolutely, as long as you'll join me. They didn't like that idea. Worked. But what if we do learn to say yes to life more often? Now, and I'm not saying say yes to our overscheduling or saying yes when we really want to say no because we're tired and we really do want to go home. That's in our highest and best. That's not the kind of yes I'm saying. I'm saying say yes to the things that might push us a little bit, the things that maybe seem a little scary, or the things that are new and that we're unsure of. Maybe if we say yes to those things, we can embrace the possibility of imperfection. No, you don't all look worried. I'm glad. I'm not going to ask you to say yes to everything all day. However, this might even be scarier. How about planning to practice making mistakes. Did anybody else's gut just kind of clench up when I said making mistakes? That thought of looking foolish, of feeling like that kid that's being ridiculed, or of doing something wrong. That's the beauty of practicing to make mistakes. We learn that the sky won't fall, our friends won't shun us, and we won't burn in hell. We learn to embrace perfection by embracing imperfection. We remember who we are. Eric Butterworth, who was actually, I think, a Unity minister, right? I know we would quote him a lot, but I know he wasn't CSO. Unity. Okay. He has a book, Celebrate Yourself. In fact, we have 2 copies of it because we were each gifted one by the same person, actually. And in that, he says, what am I willing to sacrifice to take to have a full taste of life? Well, I took a class once and we used this book as the center. And in that class, somebody asked, why would I need to sacrifice anything to have a full taste of life? Well, the answer was that we have to sacrifice doubt, hate, anger, longing, and the misguided belief that we are not enough, that we're not good enough, that we are less than. We must sacrifice the need to be perfect to step into the perfection that we already are. And in the book, Choose to Be Happy by, please correct me on his name, Swami Chidananda? Yeah. Chidananda. Chidananda.
I can't read it from there.
See, Chidan, but it's A-N. In his book, Choose to Be Happy, he says, oh, and I highlighted it in yellow with my context, and that makes it interesting to read. If you want to be happy and to live beyond anxiety, it is necessary to see the reality of life and to support that reality in a very simple way, which does not involve striving for or struggling against or after desires at all. Rather than focusing on desires and the illusion that some achievement will fulfill the space within you, we need to make the commitment to let go of desiring and grasping, to be at peace in a state of surrender, understanding that everything is in the hands of something higher anyhow. For when we are happy, we are remembering our truth and the very perfection of our being. So Wayne Dyer also has another suggestion in his book on living the Tao Te Ching, and it was for discovering perfection. He says to make a list of the 10 things or people that we have labeled as imperfect, twisted, stupid, or wrong, and then to sit with them and to take them one at a time and really elicit those feelings that come up in our body that are attached to what we call imperfect. Allow ourselves to observe without any judgment and allow that feeling of the imperfection around them to dissolve into what it truly is, the truth of our being. As Reverend Jenna said, we are whole, perfect, and complete. We were made in the image and likeness of absolute perfection, and our spiritual truth can be nothing else. Perfection is our natural state and birthright. Even Matthew 5, verse 48 says, you are to be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. And since perfection is our truth and our birthright, we can let go of fear. Fear is just false evidence appearing real. We can let go of that ego. We already said that one's edging God out. And we can start living that life of truth, of reality, of who we really are, of that intrinsic perfection. We can start in this moment, because in this moment, it is perfect. In this moment, all of our needs are met. In this moment, with this breath, there is nothing that we need. We are in absolute truth. So as Dr. Peggy asked her listeners to let go of their limited view of perfection, I ask you as well, when you leave here today, let go of that limited view of perfection. And when you see something that you may start to think of imperfect, switch that in your mind, that there's no imperfect. Because I know it is a challenge. It is a challenge to see a person or a situation which isn't what we want it to be as being perfect. As a practitioner, I've had the privilege of sitting in prayer with many, many people who are struggling to see the perfection in their lives, to see the perfection in their bodies as they change through age or through dis-ease state. When their finances change or a loved one moves to the next chapter of being. They all want to remember who they are and stop feeling less than. And that's why they came to see a practitioner, because it's easier to remember to see it in somebody else than it is in yourself. And sometimes we need that help in seeing it in ourselves by somebody outside of us who is trained to see the perfection in everything, at least in the world, not always in here, I'll admit to. But that is what a practitioner does. That is what we're trained to do. That is what we're supposed to do. That is the beauty of seeing a practitioner, is because they can help you remember your truth when you can't remember it for yourself. And practitioners see practitioners too, because we can't remember it for ourselves either. Just honest, I can't. Let's see. Let's see. We forget who we are. We forget, as Einstein said, everything is a miracle. And we do live in a friendly universe. Okay, that was paraphrasing, but you know. We forget that it is God's good pleasure to give us the kingdom, and that we are inherently perfect, and there is no less than. There is only universal truth. There is only universal love of the divine. In fact, even in Revelations 22, the author talks about the crystal clear water of life, and that on each side grow the trees of life where no evil is permitted. Well, when you filter that through the biblical scholar George Lamza, who translated the Bible from Aramaic straight to English, and he talks about the idioms of the time that the Bible was being written, and what things actually meant, because lots of times they don't mean what we think they do, meaning if we go back and see. And so what it actually meant was that the tree of life where no evil was, the tree of life means perfect man, perfect humanity. So he also speaks to a reference in Genesis 2:17 of good meaning anything perfect, and evil meaning anything imperfect or contrary to God. Some have the idea that perfection is not for us mere humans, but from Genesis to Revelations, the divine is telling us that we are perfect. So here's the part that sounds a little funny, because I love Eddie Watkins. I listen to him daily. I have for a couple decades now, have all of his songs. I'm excited for him being here. And so as I put in here the words to his song, because this is a mantra that I use a lot in life when I can't see the perfection. And so what I want us to do is to repeat this out loud and into ourselves. And we're going to do it 3 times, because 3, 1 for the head, 1 for the heart, 1 for the soul. So we get it. There is only, so repeat after me. There is only one life.
There is only one life.
That life is God's life.
That life is God.
That life is perfect.
That life is perfect.
That life is my life now. I'm going to say it all, and then you can say it with me or repeat it after me. There is only one life. That life is perfect. That life is God's life. That life is my life now. And once more with feeling, so our soul could know it. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. And so it is. So let's just take a moment, close our eyes or allow our gaze to soften, anchor this in with a prayer. As we let go, release, relax, and know there is only one life. That life, that energy, that love that holds the world in place, that grows the grass and the hair on my head, that creates and lives in every single cell of everything in my body, in every animal, in every plant, in every star. There is only one life. That life is God's life. And I know that that life to be perfect. And as I was made and in the image and likening of that divine energy of perfection, I know that intrinsically it is the truth of who I am. It is the truth of everything everywhere. Even if I judge it as being imperfect, that is only my judgment. It isn't the truth. And so I know right here, right now, that I am capable of releasing that judgment, of not judging, of knowing that perfection. I breathe in perfection. I breathe out perfection. I am surrounded by perfection. I have no need to strive to be perfect. I know that I already am, that every situation is already perfect, even in its imperfection. I know that this is my life now. And in that knowledge, I am ever so grateful. I am so grateful for that divine presence in my life, for knowing that that divine presence in my life, for knowing that that presence of God in my life never forsakes me, never leaves me, never abandons me. I know that if I feel abandoned, it is because I walked away seeking what I already have. And so I remember to come back to the truth of my being. And in that place of absolute gratitude for all things everywhere, for life as it is, I just step out of the way and allow the divine to do what the divine does. Breathe through me. And so it is.
Thank you for giving my heads up. So that song would have been perfect just before the meditation.
It's flipping them.
But I'll hear Eddie anytime, any place. It's okay. So this is the time to share in our offertory. So if you would please repeat with or after me. I live in a consciousness of good. Divine love blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. So we'll do the offertory. No, keep going. And then we'll come back and we'll do the unexpected income. So besides Patrice and I, anybody else here have unexpected income? You're Patrice.
Thank you.
Ed does?
Ed doesn't? I was
Ed,
gonna say, you
He
always
do-
do.
he always does. One time he was given a car. This man.
Yeah, not just a car.
Yeah, so Ed, do you want to come up and share?
I play softball, and one of my buddies, softball buddies, who celebrated his 83rd birthday
Wow,
playing softball.
nice.
So yeah, he's my mentor, sort of. Anyway, he had a birthday party, provided us all with lunch. So I'm sharing part of that.
Thank you, thank you. Patrice?
Yeah, sure. So ours is a little interesting. We sold a house in 2016 and long story, I'm shortening it up. Last year, IRS contacted us and didn't realize we had reinvested the money in a house here in Florida, I guess, and told us that we owed like $200,000, right? So, you know, he handled it, took care of it. And then we get a check in the mail this week on a refund from our 2016 taxes. So here's our unexpected income.
And then, as many of you know, my brother was in a care home and I was his care provider. And I got a notice 2 months, no, my brother died a year ago, May. And 2 months ago, I got notification that they were going to send me a small check left over from his fund. And I finally got it 2 months later. So it was unexpected. So that's where I'm contributing from. So since Patrice always ends with a prayer, I'm not going to do another prayer. So let's just go to what's next. Is it our closing song? Oh, here it is. Closing song. So stand and sing along. So repeat after me. Something wonderful is happening to me right now.
Something wonderful is happening to me right now.
It is this thing called perfection.
It is this thing called perfection.
Perfection is in my mind.
Perfection is in my mind.
Perfection is in my body.
Perfection is in my body.
Perfection is in my affairs.
Perfection is in my affairs.
I receive it.
I receive it.
I share it.
I share it.
I am it.
I am it.
And I accept it
And I accept it
just the way it is.
just the way that it is
And just the way it is not.
and just the way that it is not.
Thank you, perfection.
Thank you, perfection.
And so it
And
is.
so it is.
Y'all have a great week.
We're gonna have a perfect week.